Hello, welcome. I'm Pauline from PQW. I just want to share with you some of my favourite tools. You know, I love tools. I'm known as the gadget queen. But over the years, I've deciphered out so many of the things that I've brought and I no longer use. So I just want to share with you some of the tools that I use in nearly every project I make. We do design a lot of our own products here at PQW, but I want to show you other people's products that I love to use to complement with what I do. I think one of the most important things that any sewer or quilter has is a great reverse sewing tool. This is a regular unpicker, but I call it reverse sewing tool because I use it in nearly every project I make. It is the Clover one. I love it because it's I don't know how many years I've owned this tool for. It's years and years and years and years and years old. And using it like I do nearly every day, it's still as sharp as the day I brought it. I love the shape of the handle. It's not completely rounded. It's squared off at the side, so it's very comfortable in my hand to use. And I find when I'm unpicking, it just picks up those stitches for me beautifully. And I just go through and pop about every 5th or 6th stitch, which is very easy to do. You know, of course, I need a good light these days to do this too. The eyes fail a bit, but I just find having a good tool that helps you unpick quickly is really easy. So pop every 5th or 6th stitch, turn it to the back, pick up your bobbin thread and just pull it. It really makes unpicking very, 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 very easy. So that's an essential tool I think that every sewer should own. The other thing that I use to mark out my patterns on my fabrics, you know, I love to use a good quality marking pen, but a lot of times I use the Chalko liner, the Clover Chalko liner. You can get this in all different colours, but I only use the white because I find it marks nearly every coloured fabric that I work on. So here I've got a few different shades of fabric to show you. So we've got a grey, a light grey. And like, once again, I've been using this one for years and years and years, and I've still got plenty of chalk left in it, but you can take the top off and refill it. You can buy the refills, so it never ever wears out. It's got a tiny little wheel, and it gives you a beautiful fine line. So I use that a lot to mark out my fabric. You know, the chalk does rub off, but you've got to rub it really, really hard to get rid of it completely. So it's going to last there while you stitch. So if I was marking out a quilt like this and I needed to mark the lines on it, I'd probably use a marking tool like this. Put the cap back on, it's good to go. So marking on my striped fabric, very, very easy. So I can draw a grid and quilt on that grid, and it's just lovely to use. And it's perfect on dark fabric. So you can probably see there the little dots. So if you want to mark out a quilting pattern and stitch on those lines, it's very, very easy. And you can see how it rubs off, but I can still see the line. And then it will wash out. So it's another one of my favourite tools to use for marking. Now, another tool that I just love to use is the mesh transfer mat. This is a funny little mat. You may have seen me use it in some of my other videos. It's like it's a Teflon. It's got little holes in it that the pencil lines can go through. This mat, you can use it forever. I've used mine for years and years and years. You can wash them clean. You can wrinkle them all up. You can really not damage these at all. The only way I've damaged one is cut through it with my rotary cutter because it was in the road. So my own fault. But see how I can iron it flat? And the heat of the iron's not going to melt it. So if I scrubbed it, washed it and scrubbed it, I could iron it flat. But it's the tool I use to transfer all my applique shapes onto my projects. So when we've done all of these appliques and I needed to trace out the shape from the pattern, I simply put the pattern down, put the mat over the top. Now, the best way to get your design onto this mat, and there's no right or wrong side, it doesn't matter what side you have up, but the best way to get the design onto here so you can see it on any coloured fabric at all is use a very blunt 2B lead pencil. This is quite blunt. If I have it really, really sharp, like we normally have a lead pencil, as I draw over these holes, the lead will shave down and just make a mess everywhere. So press hard, particularly if you're going to mark onto dark fabric. You want to be able to see this line, so go all the way around. You can pin the mat into your the mesh mat. You could pin it into your ironing surface if you wanted to, if you felt it was going to move on you as you trace around, but I usually don't need to do that. It just sits there for me. So there's my flower drawn. Now I'm just going to draw the circle, and you can see my lead's not shaving down because it's nice and blunt. It just sits really flat on the surface. So let's see if we can see this design. So there's my design onto my mat. So now I'm ready to transfer that onto my fabric. So if I was going to transfer it onto this dark fabric, I don't know whether the camera's going to pick that up for us. So see how you can see the dark lead shining onto the dark fabric? So I can see exactly where I'm going to draw. Now I could use this Chalko liner if I wish to. I'll just hold it up so you can see. I just find the Chalko liner can be a little bit difficult to draw around those nice curves with that mat, even though it comes through. See how it disperses the chalk too much for me? So I'm going to use the bowhin marking pencil with the white lead, but I don't want the lead sticking out too far. I just want it out a little bit because otherwise it will get caught up in the holes and snap. So we're just going to draw across here. Oops, and I had mine out too far and it's going to snap. So you just draw around your shape, and I can see the design quite clearly, but see how that's coming through? So there I have my design, and if I've gone off skew a bit, I can just come back and round that up a bit. Then I could cut that out. Cut out my applique shapes like we have with all of these shapes here on this little applique piece. Just cut out your shapes, and when I cut out my shapes, I love to use these wonderful scissors. These are the jack scissors. I love them because of the big handle. I can get a really good grip. They're not going to hurt my fingers, and they are so, so sharp. So they just go through our fabric beautifully. They really are beautiful scissors to use. I've not found another, and they're kind of serrated so my fabric doesn't drag on them. It just cuts out beautifully for me. So they're my scissors of choice. Now when we have finished with that mesh mat and we don't want to use, have that design on there anymore, all we do is put it down and use a normal paper eraser, and we just simply erase the design off. Then my mat is clean for my next applique shape to go on. I just feel it saves us making templates, it saves us cutting out our paper pattern. We've always can keep our pattern as it is and use the mat as the template. But just a little hint, if I tried to erase it off this side, it's not going to come off because that's not the side of the mat that I drew the line on with the 2B lead pencil. It was on this side, so it will only erase off from the side that you put it on with. So always keep that in mind. I've had people say to me, but I can't get the lines off. And as soon as I tell them to turn the mat over the other way and erase from the other side, presto, it comes off. But don't forget, you can put this in hot soapy water, give it a good scrub. You can really rub it together and scrub it, and then you can iron it flat, and you've got it forever. So that's how I get all of my applique shapes onto my fabric. Now, another tool that I really, really like to use is this little hero marker. This is a little tool that will turn any of your applique shapes through because it's got the nice point on it and it's not got the nice curved edge. So when I've made this little project here, when we've been making this up, they're double-sided flower petals. So some have got the same colour on the back, some have got different colours on the back. This one's got a little spot on the back. So once it's stitched on here, it's not yet stitched, but once it's stitched on, that can stand as a 3D flower. So we use the mesh mat trace the design onto here, trace the design onto our fabric, and once we get the design drawn onto our fabric like we have here, here we have the design drawn on for one of those little flower petals. We then stitch on that line. Then once we've stitched on that line, we cut it out about 1/8 to 1/4 inch bigger, all the way around. Then we want to turn the shape through. So instead of us doing 2 lots of fabrics like we have here, on this one we used fabric and then we used a little bit of thin violin on the back, because this one will be stitched down, you're not going to see this. So to save on fabric, you don't always have to have fabric on the back, just use something else on the back. But this tool's fabulous when I turn these curves out. So I'm just going to turn this through to start with. And then our little tool will push all of this out for us and get it all out nice and even around those curves. So, see, I'm using that curved end. And you can see now how that's flattening out that curve for me. So now I've got the pointy end on the curve, so where I've got something that doesn't quite sit out right, I can just poke it. Don't poke too hard because you don't want to poke a hole through. But that now sits that out beautifully for me, so now I can just gather that up. That'll be another petal on another block that we're making. We'll put a circle over the top, but that's going to give me a 3D petal. So I use this tool a lot to turn through a lot of my shapes. So, you know, it's just getting the right tools that'll make your job very efficient, very easy, very fast and enjoyable. But don't forget, this is one of our most favourite tools. A lot of people hate reverse sewing, but if you've got a good tool, it'll make it very, very easy for you. So we've talked about the Unpicker, we've talked about the Choco Liner, we've talked about the Point Turner, we've talked about the Jack Scissors, and we've talked about the brilliant mesh transfer mat. So they're my favourite tools for this time, but I have lots more to show you. So stay tuned to our YouTube videos. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. I would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel by pressing that bell. Then you'll get notifications every time we put a new video up for you. Or go to our website, have a look at all of the tools there, have a look at all the videos we've got for you on how to use all the tools. Our website is www.pqw.com.au. And we'd love you to subscribe to our newsletter so that we can share some exciting news with you as it comes up through the year. So thank you for joining. Happy stitching till next time. Bye.